peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us about 5 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi, Kenya, and that will be the East African time. I'm glad that you found time to be with me this afternoon. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The television station is Punchline Africa TV, where we get to, talk about what is it that is happening here in the continent and highlight some of the stories. And of course, if you've been paying attention to one of the trending stories from the continent from yesterday is the coup that now has seen President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita resign yesterday at night, I think, the president of Mali. And that will be one of the topics that we shall be looking at today after going through the rest of the news making headlines across the continent. So thank you so much there. And some analysts are saying that this should be a warning shot to some of the heads of state across the continent who sometimes decide to use force, or other means, when they're trying to respond to some of, the issues that the citizens bring forth. And we know we have a couple of situations across the continent that has been happening, a lot of protests and chaos and being met with a lot of force from the government. So perhaps Mali should be a great case study. I don't know, but we shall get into that, conversation in a short while. Let me know what you think of what is happening in Mali and any other part of Africa. Any story that you think will be of benefit to our viewers, just on the comment section, and then I will share it to the rest of the viewers across the world. So thank you so much. And we start with Mali itself. And the soldiers who ousted Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita say they plan to set up a civilian transitional government and hold new elections. The spokesman for the soldiers said they acted to prevent the country falling further into chaos. President Keita resigned on Tuesday night, saying he did not want blood to be spilled to keep him in power. Now, the African Union, regional leaders, and the UN have condemned the coup. The soldiers, calling themselves the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, said they did not want to stay in power. And once I'm through with the rest of the African news, we can get into the details of what is happening there in Mali. And then, of course, ECOWAS has responded to what has happened in Mali. And a delegation of West African heads of state is expected in Mali today, according to Mali's EU-funded Studio Tamani News website. Nigeria's Mahamoud Issoufou, Senegalese President Macky Sall, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, and Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara are expected in the country, the website has reported. Now, heads of state from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS bloc, had previously visited the country and proposed the formation of a unity government to resolve the political crisis. The opposition rejected the proposal and insisted that President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita resigns. Now, Mali's military ousted the president on Tuesday and said they will set up a transitional government. ECOWAS has rejected the Tuesday's coup and, of course, ordered for sanction against the mastermind. And then we cross over to Mozambique, and a Chinese firm constructing a cement factory in Mozambique's capital, Maputo, has been confining about 60 local workers on the construction site since March. A company representative says the decision was taken to prevent a possible transmission of coronavirus from the workers to their employer. The Salamanga cement factory is being constructed in Matutuone district in Maputo province. The decision has kept the workers away from their families. A lawyer, Paulina Kosa, says this is violation of local labor laws. A company representative has promised to release the workers next week. Like, how can you go to China as an African, perhaps start up a business there if you can afford to, and then out of whatever reason decides, you know what, 60 of you Chinese in your country, I'm going to lock you up. You're going to stay inside the confines of this company or these buildings or whatever establishment. You cannot go out because, you know, there's a pandemic out there. And you will walk around scot-free. Like, where does these foreigners get the nerve to come and do certain things like that in this continent? Can you imagine this Chinese constructing a cement company, a factory there in Mozambique, has been holding, or rather confining, 60 workers who are Mozambican in their country in Mozambique there for 60 days. Not for 60 days, since March. So how many months are those? Because this is the reason they gave. They were saying that they were preventing these workers from transmitting coronavirus to their employer, who is a Chinese. And guess where the virus came from? I don't know whether to feel sad or to be mad as an African or just disgusted. It's just ridiculous. The things that we allow to happen, you know, the level of abuse we allow to happen in our continent that sometimes are meted by foreigners, which you cannot even think about doing when you visit their own countries. You'll be dead. In China, you'll even be short. You can't do that. But we allow them to come do certain things in this continent. I do not understand. Is it because they understand maybe perhaps you don't have that much protection from the state, or maybe because they're the state, a lot of officials there sometimes gain illicitly from some of these foreign companies, and so you know, it does not matter what happens to the locals there. This is something that the government of Mozambique has to look at. This is just unacceptable. Since March, being held, being confined, 60 workers, because the owner, who is a Chinese, is afraid that these people are going to infect him or them with coronavirus, which came from China, by the way. I don't know. All right. Yes, even in Zambia, I think we talked about it here a couple of months ago. It's ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous. And things like this is... Okay, let's just move along. We go to Libya, where an armed group loyal to the Libyan renegade General Khalifa Haftar has announced a partial lifting of its blockade of oil installations that's been in place since January. This will allow the sale of oil already stored in terminals, but not the production of fresh supplies. The blockade has caused power cuts and cost Libya more than $8 billion US in lost exports. The shutdown of oil fields was intended to put economic pressure on General Haftar's rivals in the UN-backed government based in the capital, Tripoli. And then we move to Burkina Faso, where the opposition in Burkina Faso has agreed to rally behind any challenger to President Roch Kabore, who reaches the second round in November's elections. Now, 8 presidential candidates and 22 opposition parties signed the agreement on Tuesday. Should 2 opposition candidates reach the second round, then their representative parties would support them. The agreement states the first round of the presidential election will be held on the 22nd of November. And then we go to Ivory Coast. Now, the police in Ivory Coast have arrested a man who allegedly set buses on fire last week during the mass protests in the commercial capital, Abidjan. The violent protests have been going on for weeks since the ruling party nominated President Alassane Ouattara to seek re-election for a third term, which, by the way, is against the constitution of Ivory Coast. President Alassane Ouattara says he's going for a third time, which the constitution in Ivory Coast does not really allow. But also very interesting to learn that Alassane Ouattara is one of the heads of state from ECOWAS who are going to find a solution there in Mali, when he's literally trying to set his own country on fire, because since his announcement there has been a lot of protest. So he's going against his own country's constitution. But now they're going to Mali today to try to find a solution in Mali, which was brought about. One of the reasons why is, the bogus elections that happened earlier in March. And now he wants to involve himself in a bogus election where they're going against the spirit of the constitution of even his own country. But he's going to find a solution in Mali. Oxymoronic, I don't know. All right, very well. We move to Zimbabwe, and a Zimbabwean court has ordered that a top rights lawyer be barred from representing a prominent journalist because she allegedly ran Facebook pages critical of the country's justice system. The magistrate court in the capital Harare ruled on Tuesday that Beatrice Mtetwa, an international acclaimed lawyer who has been at the forefront of defending the country's human rights activists, be removed from representing award-winning journalist Hopewell Chinono. Now, Chinono faces charges of inciting violence for his role in promoting protests against corruption in late July that were banned and led to a government crackdown on dissent. Mtetwa denied any knowledge of the Facebook pages. She said the government was leading a personal attack against her with a chilling effect on other lawyers. And this is what she also said. The idea is to say to human rights lawyers, if you represent such a client, we will come after you. Now, Mtetwa told reporters outside court, adding that her team would challenge the decision. Interesting. President Mnangagwa, are you watching what is happening there in Mali? Pay attention. All right, we go to the DRC. And almost 500 fighters from a fraction of one of the largest armed groups in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have surrendered to the government just over a month after they attempted to overthrow the group's leader. Soldiers from the NDCR, a rebel group, seen as having close ties with the National Army, sang and danced before handing over an assortment of small arms at a ceremony on Monday in the village of Kashuga, about 75 kilometers north of Goma. Another country here in Africa that, peace has just refused to be part of it for the longest time there. Of course, a lot of international interest there that continue to fuel, those unrest in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we move to Cameroon, where the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, has issued a release restricted the sale, possession and the use of light weapons in the Anglophone regions for a period of 3 months, renewable, following repeated acts of violence committed on the population with the said weapons. According to the release issued on Tuesday, August 18th, the only way for a person living in the northwest or southwest regions to own a machete, an axe or an iron rod is henceforth through authorization. So look here, if you want even to cut your fence or to just to do anything, because machete is used for a lot of reasons. You can cut the grass, you can do whatever. You can go to the garden and do some gardening with it. And the axe, you require it for several reasons, especially in the villages there. Cutting firewood and things like that. But now, the government of Cameroon is saying, if you live in the Anglophone regions, you cannot even go and buy a machete. You cannot buy an axe, and you cannot buy an iron rod. Before you do that, you need some authorization. What is this? Now, he has thus instructed the governors of the two regions to count all the machetes, axes, and irons found in all the shops present in the area of command, so that none of them should be bought without the buyer giving concrete reasons for the purchases. All right. And that is just another crisis that AU we are expecting that should be really looking at things like this before they get completely out of hand. But AU is not even addressing this matter here in Cameroon, which, if not really addressed as it should, will really get off hand and very, very soon. We go to Nigeria, where Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry has summoned Ghana's chargé d'affaires to protest against the recent forceful closure of shops owned by Nigerian traders in Ghana, according to a ministry spokesperson. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Onyema tweeted on Monday that urgent steps will be taken. Now, meanwhile, in Ghana, the head of the Nigerian Traders Association in the Ashanti region told the BBC that more than 100 shops belonging to Nigerian traders have been sealed off in Accra. Now, the authorities in Ghana said the traders have failed to comply with the regulations for foreign-owned businesses, and one of the regulations is any business that you do in Ghana, at least it must be, your capital should be at least $1 million for you to set up shops there in Ghana if you're not Ghanaian. If you're coming from any other outside Ghana, it does not matter whether it's Nigeria, it does not matter whether you're coming from Benin, Somalia, Libya, whatever, Kenya, Tanzania and you want to even think about putting up shop there in Ghana, then the least you can put up shop there that is allowed according to the laws there is $1 million US. Interesting, and we talked about it yesterday. So can we now look at what has happened in Mali there, and of course tens of thousands of people have been pouring in the streets of Bamako in the recent weeks amid growing dissatisfaction over alleged electoral malpractice and corruption there in Mali. The so-called opposition June 5th movement also accuses Keita of allowing Mali's economy to collapse and of mishandling a spiraling security situation in the northern and central regions that has entangled regional and international governments, as well as the United Nations, a mission that is considered the most lethal of any currently alive. Now, anti-government protests resumed in Mali just a couple of days ago after weeks of posts. Remember, they took a break during Eid, and they resumed just a few weeks ago. And you're asking, who can afford $1 million US? I know, it's ridiculous. So in other words, Ghana is telling you, thank you very much, but stay in your country and do businesses. Small scale or medium scale businesses, do them in your country or with other African countries. But what is really baffling is this goes against the spirit of ECOWAS, the economic bloc there in West Africa. It goes against the spirit of that book that allows free trade, free movement of goods and certain things that member states are privileges that they're supposed to be enjoying. So yeah, it's quite ridiculous there. So Ghana, but there has been a long-standing feud between Ghana and Nigeria. I don't know why. Just the other day, they stormed into Nigeria's embassy there in Ghana and brought down a building that was being built there for the embassy with no reasons at all. And of course, the government of Ghana said it will rebuild and all that. So that tells you this deep-seated, feud between Ghana and Nigeria there that perhaps those two countries need to address because it's hurting their citizens, especially Nigerians and more so Biafrans, who are said to be the ones who are really, being hurt by this all there in Ghana. So now let's just get back to this coup that happened there in Mali. They're calling it a mutiny. And a mutiny is when a few, soldiers disobey the hierarchy or the way of and go against what is expected of them. So that is what happened there apparently in Mali. And you remember yesterday, I think while we were doing the afternoon African news, I think I told you that because I just saw the news. And I told you it is a developing story. I didn't think I'll come here today and tell you Ibrahim Boubacar Keita has been forced to resign. It's similar to what happened to the late President Robert Mugabe. If people go on those streets long enough, or what happened to Omar al-Bashir, if people go to those streets long enough and you pretend as though you cannot hear what they're trying to tell you, and then for 1 minute, the soldiers take their side. At the end of the day, what these leaders don't understand, the army that they use to protect themselves, these are people with mothers. These are people with fathers. These are people with brothers and sisters. These are human beings who perhaps are also seeing the suffering that is happening and that, the government is meting on its people. And at some point, they can only protect you long enough. And then they'll be like, you know what? Why are we even protecting you? And when you see the statements there that have been issued, by the army there, it's quite interesting. And the leader of that mutiny is quite a young man. They're saying he's 25. He does not look 25 to me. He looks a bit older. But anyway, let's just go back. So the so-called June 5th movement, which has been calling for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, just started being led by a very renowned or popular cleric there, Muslim cleric there in Mali, and a lot of Malians believed in some of these things, that they believed was wrong with the regime led by President Keita, now former. So now, the violence in which ideologically motivated armed groups have stoked ethnic tensions while jokering for power has spilled into the neighboring countries of Niger. We've seen, and one of the key things that they're saying is President Boubacar Keita has not been able to address the issue of the runaway insecurity in Mali. And, there has been militant activities in Mali there, and these activities have gone into countries like Niger, Burkina Faso, and they have destabilized the wider Sahel region and creating a massive humanitarian crisis. And that is what we kept saying here, even for President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, because that is the bedrock of Boko Haram in the Sahel region. It's like the bedrock of all the insecurities, because the conditions in Nigeria has allowed Boko Haram to grow. And so that became a huge problem. The extremist groups in Mali became a huge problem. And what really happened in March, let's just take us through the events that perhaps led to Mali to where it is today. Now, political tension has been simmering since Keita won re-election in August 2018 in a poll that opposition parties said were marred with irregularities. Always starts with, politics, always starts with bad elections here in Africa. That is like the biggest pitfall. And then the government pushed ahead with the legislative election in March this year. All right, so presidential elections in 2018. So this year, they were electing the members of parliament, all right, the legislative elections that happened in March. And this was despite the coronavirus outbreak and drew further after the Constitutional Court overturned 31 of the results. Now, the Constitutional Court overturned 31 of the results that were that in the provincial level, these people have been declared they won the elections, but the Constitutional Court came and overturned those wins. And these 31 legislators, they came from the opposition. All right. Now, during that time, and of course, the decision handed Keita parties 10 more parliamentary seats. All right, so that made him have the majority there in parliament, making it the largest bloc. Now, in March, when you go using the courts and the army, thinking that you're protecting yourself, sometimes these things turns against you, and they come in and bite you at times that you don't even expect. Now, in March, an unidentified gunman abducted Mali's main opposition leader. And if you've been watching us, and you've been watching particularly this show, Diaspora Dispatches, I've been telling us and I've been reminding us about this. We've been talking about this story for the longest time. During that period of elections, when elections were supposed to be taking place the next day, guess what happened? These militants abducted the country's opposition leader, Soumaïla Cissé, as he campaigned in the country's volatile center. He has not been seen or heard from since. And just about 2 months ago, President Boubacar Keita came out and said the opposition leader was fine. He has spoken to him. That means president was in contact with these militants, and that is what I think even the leaders of this protest, were wondering, because the country cannot continue to grow in insurgency, and then these same insurgents are holding the country's opposition leader, and then we've never seen him or heard from him. Then you will stand in a podium in a public place and tell us that you just spoke to him. How did you get in touch with him? Are you working? Is your government working in cahoots with the militants and the insurgency there in Mali? All right, so those are the questions that the protesters were asking. And then, to make matters worse, one day during that time, President Keita said, perhaps I think it will be a good idea for us to start, talking with these militant groups and just find a truce and just have conversations with them. And I was just here a couple of months ago saying, how is it if we start normalizing having conversations, with these militant, groups, with these extremist groups? and we want to invite them to the table and have conversation with them, because this is a serious problem. We are dealing with it here in Kenya. Of course, right now it's not as rampant as it used to a couple of years ago, but it is still a problem that the Kenyan government must always be on alert to make sure, just in case of anything, the country is prepared. We are dealing with that Al-Shabaab, from Somalia. But should any government, say Nigeria or Mali, the way President Boubacar Keita wanted to have a round table with extremist groups, we will be encouraging, we will be giving a lifeline to these extremist groups, and they will be thinking, we only need to bomb your country just enough times. We only need to kill your people just enough times. And when we do that, and it's too much for your government, then the government will cave in, and now they have to bring us to the table, like what you're seeing happening there with the Taliban. They continue, to cause mayhem there. And now it has forced, the government of Afghanistan, and, that mediation is being brokered by the US and Qatari and all that. So now a terrorist group has a say in the running of a country. And I was thinking, Boubacar Keita, you are inviting death there. And of course, the people of Mali do not like that idea. And, that is just one of the things that costed him, his leadership there. So in March, as I said there, Mali's main opposition leader, Soumaila, was abducted. And he's never been heard or seen since then until today. Meanwhile, there has been continuous allegations of corruption and power consolidation among the government elite, fueled by recently published images of the president's son partying on a yacht abroad. People are poor. People cannot afford basic needs. And then your child is out there partying on a yacht and, showing us all on Instagram. I don't know where he was sharing those pictures, but I'm assuming, all over social media. Now, this comes as citizens continue. Isn't that the problem with the leadership? This comes as citizens continue to struggle under Mali's crumbling economy, while the president's son was partying on a yacht somewhere, which depends largely on gold and cotton and has been badly affected by the devolving security situation and the coronavirus pandemic. Now, striking teachers also joined protest press demands for promised salary increases. So Keita there was just dealing with too much. Now, the country also faces chronic lacks in roads and electricity infrastructure, as well as access to healthcare, food and water. And according to World Bank figures, more than 40% of Mali's 20 million people experience extreme poverty. There you go. So you couple with all these things, all these problems, and then your son is somewhere partying on a yacht. You tell me how the child of the poor man who is working so hard to build that economy and to give the taxes that can afford you that wonderful life, tell me, how is it that they will continue taking that? It comes to a point where, people just have enough of it and they say, you know what, enough is enough. So these are just some of the people, the military men that are said to have led this mutiny, and one of them is Colonel Malik Diao. He is the deputy head of the Kati camp where the mutiny started. There is very little information about him apart from the reports that he recently returned from training in Russia. Interesting. And he stood next to the Air Force Deputy of Chief of Staff, Colonel Major Ismail Wagwe, who read a statement on Wednesday on behalf of the junta to announce the military takeover. Now, the next person was Colonel Sadio Camara, and this person is a former director of the Kati Military Academy. Now, Mali Tribune website reported that he was born in 1979 in Kati, in Mali's southern Kulikoro region. He graduated from the Kulikoro Military Academy with top honors. He was then deployed to northern Mali, where he served under Brigadier General Haj Gamo until 2012. And then Camara later became the director of Kati Military Academy, a position he held until January 2020 when he went to Russia for military training. So the first one also went to Russia. I'm not suggesting anything, but I hope you're following, So the first one, Malik Diao, recently returned from training in Russia. this other Camara, Colonel Camara, also returned, from Russia after military training. All right. The newspaper, the Mali Tribune, said he returned to Bamako earlier this month to take his 1-month leave. Look at that. And then the third one, the 3 key military officials there that led that mutiny in Mali. Look, I'm not saying Russia did anything. I'm just saying these are the facts, all right? And the third one is General Sheikh Fanta Madi Dembele, and he is the director of the General of Allion Blondin Beye Peacekeeping Institution. He was promoted Brigadier General in May 2018 and assumed leadership of the Peacekeeping Institution in December 2018. Prior to his appointment to the institution, General Dembele was in charge of conflict management and strategic planning of the African Union Peace and Security Commission based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Very well. So now, General Ndebele is a graduate of Saint Cyr Military Academy in France. So 2 of them came from France, and this one is from 2 of them came from Russia, and this one is from France. He also graduated from the General Staff College of Koulikoro, Mali. He also had a degree in history from the University of Paris, Pantheon. I could say that French word correctly. He also has a master's degree in civil engineering and graduated from the German Federal Army University in Munich, Bayern München. Munich, you call it München in German. Very interesting. Can you see any ties there? I don't know. All right. So now, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, from his position as Malian head of state, he came last night in a televised broadcast of his official statement. Part of his statement while resigning, he said, I would like at this precise moment, while thanking the Malian people for their support. Well, we are having some problems in Malawi too, but right now we are dealing with Mali. I would like to thank the people of Mali for their support, warmth, and affection throughout these long years, to inform you of my decision to step down from all my functions from this very moment onward. His decision was announced just before midnight on Tuesday on the country's national television station at the Office of Radio and Television of Mali. Now, a banner across the bottom of the television screen already referring to him as the outgoing president. And this came following hours of gunshots. Remember the ones that we were talking about here yesterday during at around 3:30 p.m. fired into the air by armed mutineers outside his private residence, where he and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé were detained by soldiers, a military coup d'etat which certain sources suppose were headed by Colonel Malik Diao. That one that I said, went and studied, just came back from Russia. From training. So now, let's just see some of the responses there from ECOWAS. Remember, ECOWAS had led a team there to try and find a solution to this, and that was the team from ECOWAS was led by former President of Nigeria, Jonathan Goodluck, who was there, I think, about 2 weeks ago, and they could not find a solution because some of the demands that the protesters were giving, they're saying they could not support, and one of them was for President Ibrahim Keita to resign, and the team from ECOWAS said no, they cannot allow that. And even I think, was it President Buhari also flew to Mali after that. I don't know what they discussed because the meetings, the discussions of that was not made public. Right, so ECOWAS, was the one that was leading the mediation there in Mali that I think was not very successful now, judging from what you're seeing today. Now, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said on Tuesday it had decided to close its member states' borders. Listen. With Mali after mutinying soldiers detained President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. Now, ECOWAS, which includes Mali, said in a statement it was suspending all financial flows and between its 14 other member states and Mali, and suspending Mali from its internal decision-making bodies. Now, the bloc also said that its members would close land-air borders with Mali and pledge to demand sanctions against all the purchased and their partners and collaborators. So who are their partners and who are their collaborators? ECOWAS, please tell us more. And ECOWAS also noted with great concern the seizure of power by the Malian military. So this is a statement from ECOWAS, just a bit of it. And on Wednesday, the West African Regional G5 Sahel Task Force demanded the release of Keita and other senior officials. And that statement continues. The presidents of the G5 Sahel wish to express their unwavering attachment to a constitutional order and to the respect of democratically established institutions. Now, these leaders of the G5 Sahel region, a region that has been plagued with insurgency, a region that has been plagued with insecurity, they've never found a solution to this problem, the runaway insecurity in Sahel region. And even when this mayhem has been going on and the chaos that have been going on in Mali, they said very, very little. And now perhaps Malians decided we're going to take matters in our own hands, and the army decided, okay, our people perhaps have suffered enough. How about you just give you a break? And then they've said they don't have a plan to stay longer in power. They just want to facilitate another civilian leadership, because if you are led by an army, then you cannot be a member of the African Union. Then you have to be struck out as a member. Remember what they did with Sudan, when the military took over, because any country that is led by the military, you cannot be a member of the African Union. So, they had to sort of bring a civilian in line. That is why they have the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok's side, so that Sudan was allowed back to African Union. Otherwise, you cannot be allowed if you're led by a military. That is just one of the regulations for you to be part of the African Union. So let's just hear what African Union has said. This institution that has been very quiet in addressing some of the things and some of the issues that are plaguing also this continent, So the United Nations and the AU, this time they spoke in one voice. They came out and they have condemned the detention of Mali's president and other top government officials by mutinous soldiers in an apparent coup attempted, and demanded they be freed urgently. This is what the African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki said, his statement just partly. I strongly condemn the forced detention of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita of Mali, the Prime Minister Boubou Cissé and other members of the Malian government, and call for their immediate release. All right, very well. Well, I don't think it's necessary for the president to be held. Now that he's, I think, out of office, he's been forced to resign. I don't know if there's a need for him to continue to be, detained. I think perhaps they should let him go. And the AU, of course, and the UN have come out and condemned that. And Mr. Faki, also denounced any attempt at unconstitutional change, while urging the mutineers to cease all use of violence. Faki called on the 15-nation West African ECOWAS bloc, the UN, and the entire international community to combine their efforts to oppose any use of force to end their political crisis in Mali. So when, Mr. Faki, when you say they should combine their efforts, what do you mean? In what sense? Yeah. In what sense? Mr. Keita himself has come and said, you know what, I don't want Malians' blood to be part of, the spillage of the blood of the people of Mali. So in that, of course, he was forced to say that, I will step down. And so you're saying that all ECOWAS and the UN and other states should combine forces and do what? And force to end the political crisis in Mali. So that is what you should have done as the chair of the African Union. Immediately you saw that 1 million member march. You remember a few weeks ago, and we talked about it here. I don't know where Moussa Faki was, and we said if this is not checked, if African Union does not move in speed and try to mediate this process and find a solution. Even ECOWAS came in, just Miss Jane came lately, very late into the events, after they had taken shape, after the protesters, organizers were able to mobilize enough Malians to go out in the streets. It just started slowly. If at all African Union was serious about solving these issues, now that they're giving these statements, they should have come out way early when this protest started, when the killings, when the government of Mali was meeting, the protesters with an equaled, force there. Did you see how the government of Mali was beating the protesters there in the streets of Bamako? ECOWAS was very quiet. And then AU, that is not even a matter they were, willing to consider. Now things have gotten out of hand, and Moussa Faki is coming out here issuing statements that have no have no basis at all. I don't know if this will change anything, because they were supposed to come in, just when they saw this was getting out of hand. All right. So I don't know if it's a bit too late. You tell me what you think of this. Now, let's look at the mediation process. Now, the opposition alliance anti-Keita campaign veered into crisis last month when at least 11 people were killed over 3 days of unrest that followed a protest. And those were extrajudicial killings. You can only use force to people, but the people who have decided they want change, and change must happen now, whether they're being sponsored or otherwise, it doesn't matter. They will come out, and they came out in huge numbers there. And during those protests, 11 people were killed and several others were injured. And of course, a lot of others were arrested, and later they were released after, a pressure. In an effort to avoid chaos in notoriously unstable Mali, ECOWAS then stepped in to mediate after things had gotten out of hand. All right. Now, the bloc suggested the formation of a unity government and other measures late last month, but stuck by Keita. They said, come rain, come sunshine, we don't even care what you want. These other things can be amended, but our President Boubacar Keita stays. All right. Well, there are other members, heads of state, so it is expected that they would have stuck with Keita. So they did that, and they did not seem to address some of the issues that were being raised by the protest sides. I remember when they went there and they met, I think they met with the president, and they did not meet with the protesters side. They did not meet with the leader of the protesters. So they met with the president of Mali, and then they came out and made this resolution and read out, but they did not care to engage the protesters during that time. So look at that. And ECOWAS said it was mediating. Now, all right, so the political opposition declared a new phase of anti-government rallies on Monday. They started after that break of Eid. They started again on Monday. And of course, the landlocked Mali has struggled to regain stability since the Tuareg uprising in 2012, which was hijacked by Islamist militants linked to Al-Qaeda, and a subsequent coup in the capital plunged the country into chaos. Keita, who is now 75 years old, came to power in 2013 following the Bamako coup, promising to bring peace and stability and fight corruption. He won re-election for a second 5-year term in 2018, and of course that re-election was disputed because there were issues of electoral malpractice and all of that. So there was a coup that eventually brought Keita to power. So he left the way he came, right? The same way Omar al-Bashir, he came to power through a coup, and he left through a coup. And Omar al-Bashir right now, I think, is answering to charges over that coup and what happened. And I don't know how he will say he did not participate, because it is the coup that brought him to power. So when you live by the sword, I guess you die by it. Now, the 2012 Malian coup d'etat began on the 21st of March that year, when mutinying Malian soldiers, just exactly what happened yesterday, displeased with the management of the Tuareg rebellion that also brought insecurity, the same insecurity that Keita has refused to address as the president, attacked several locations in the capital Bamako, including the presidential palace, a state television, and military barracks. The same thing we've been seeing happening in Mali, in Niger, in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, Boko Haram, and these militant groups. Now, the soldiers who said they had formed the National Committee for the Restoration of a Democratic State. I don't know how soldiers in Mali form these committees, because also these soldiers here, the name that they have given themselves, I don't know if it is allowed anywhere else, because I don't think that we have that here. These soldiers, they formed a small group, a committee, and they called themselves like the ones who led the coup yesterday. I can't find their names, but you see also in 2012, that is exact repeat of what happened in 2012 during that coup that happened in 2012, and then President Keita came to power in 2013. Now, Keita again ran for president in July-August 2013 in the presidential election, and was considered the front runner. He won the election in a second round of voting, defeating Miley, and he was sworn in as a president now. Somaila, this is the leader of opposition that was abducted by insurgents in March, just a day to the election, all right? And he's never been seen nor heard, but President Keita knows where he is because a couple of weeks ago he came out and said he is fine. So that means Keita has been in contact with the Boko Haram there in Mali, I don't know. And he was sworn in as a president on 4th September 2013. Keita had vowed to prioritize ability rather than political consideration when appointing ministers. And on 5th September 2013, he appointed a technocrat, a banking official, Omar, and as prime minister after Omar Tatamli's resignation, Keita appointed Musa Mara and later on Modibo Keita. Upon Keita's resignation, Ibrahim Boubacar was appointed as prime minister. Like, why are your prime ministers resigning? So that should have been a telltale sign that there is a problem there with the leadership of President Boubacar Keita. When you have all these 3-4 prime ministers resigning from their positions, and then this person also resigned in 2019 amid public protests following the Ogusagu massacre, and on the 22nd of April 2019, President Keita named Dr. Buba Asise as Prime Minister, and now I think they've been held together by the army there. And his son, Karim Keita, is also a member of the National Assembly, and he was also leading a very powerful committee there in his father's cabinet, and he stepped down a couple of weeks ago, and he said for the sake of the peace in his country, he did not want to if his position was contributing to any acrimony there. He stepped down, and I thought, perhaps the father also would follow suit, but that did not happen. So now, as we speak, Mali's military leaders have ordered the closure of all border crossings and imposed a nighttime curfew, according to an announcement by the Malian Air Force Deputy Chief of Staff. And this is what the statement says. As of today, that is the 19th of August 2020, all air and land borders are closed until further notice. A curfew is in place from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. until further notice. And also, he also extended an invitation to opposition groups which have been calling for reforms for talks leading to fresh elections. And they said there will be elections as soon as possible there in Mali. All right, so let me see what else you've been saying. I think, I don't know if you think this should be a warning shot to some of the leaders in this continent, because the freedom to express, your rights is enshrined in all these constitutions in this continent. Is it the freedom of speech, the freedom to express? But we've seen a lot of times it's meted with a lot of unnecessary force here. And so, Jimmy Prince, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for watching. Nachendri Akudinawa, you're saying Nigerian military should emulate from Malians military. You think they can do that? Nwang Nguyen, you're saying power belongs to the people. Kudo to Malians. And this is what I've been saying. Ina Hassan, you're saying they will follow the well-known mantra, call for the return to the democratic process, give a guideline for elections, blah, blah, and another coup some years down the line. Yes. So judging from the history there, because there was another coup that happened, and the same issues that they were raising, the protesters were raising now are the same issues that are similar to those that were raised in the 2012 coup, I think. So you're saying, all right, let's see. Knights Brito, you're saying a chairman is a disgrace of a bunch of wicked human beings. And Richard Lokuro, you're saying, or is Africa COVID-19 brother? I don't know. Okay, the next is Nigeria. France needs to leave Africa. This is just the beginning. Do not worry about, because even yesterday when I was reading the news here, the first country that tweeted about the shots that were heard in the Bamako barracks was French embassy there in Mali, and they said they had sent their army there to see what's going on. And we know that French has a huge contingent of army trying to help Mali to fight Boko Haram, and French also has a huge number of soldiers in Niger to help them fight Boko Haram, and also in Chad. But that has not helped anything. And when I say it's a huge number, it is a huge number, in thousands, in tens of thousands. And we've seen the issue of Boko Haram and insurgency there, has continued there in the Sahel region. So I don't know. I really don't know what these soldiers are doing really there, honestly, because their presence there has not changed anything. In matter of fact, things have become worse in terms of the lack of security there in the Sahel region. So let me just see. Richard Lucar, you're saying very sad. What is sad? And Ina Hassan, you're saying French treats the Francophone region as their backyard. They control everything, just like Gabon, where everything has to come from France. Yes, and we were reading about Gabon. We were talking about Ina Hassan yesterday about Gabon, celebrating 60 years of independence, and you wonder, are you even really independent? If, you cannot trade with another country before you ask France, and France is your biggest trade partner. And when you go to even local supermarkets there in Gabon, all the products, majority of them come from French. And when their founding father, the first president, they were getting the independence, what that president said is that, we really, independence, maybe not, but we don't mind, being a sub, what did he call it? Just a department of France. So Gabon is just a department of France, and also other countries that were colonized by France there. They still pay a lot of their allegiance, to French. I think even, so France left, but never really left. And, a lot of chaos that when you look at the countries that were colonized by France, just take your time and just take a look. Just take a look at what is happening in this country. And one trend, majority of them, the Central African Republic, I go to, a place like the DRC, just go up to, Central African and go to some West African state and up there in North and see what has been happening in these regions. And then you will, you'll decide to yourself what's really happening. Knights Brito, you said colonial pact signed during decolonization. Yes, so it's like we're leaving, but we're not really leaving. Yes, we shall still be taking care of we have to approve your national budget. All your monies must come not to your central bank, but over there, so that we plan and see what you really need. We will decide how you use the money. Crazy. Yeah, and we're here saying that, we're independent. It's just that. Joel McCall, you're saying West Africa is being destroyed by religious groups. These are not even religious groups. These are extremists. I think there's a difference between an extremist group, because we know even other Christian religious who call themselves Christian religious organizations that you really look at what they're doing and you're like, that, if it's not a cult, I don't know what that is. They go outside, completely of, they might not be as violent, but we've seen even a lot of, when you go to America, a lot of those people, the white supremacists, they are Pentecostals. They go to church and they praise the Lord and they love Jesus, but still they have so much hate in their heart for anybody they perceive to be different from them. So they don't even mind killing. So I think there's the difference between religion, which I think they use just as a road to advance their extremist, ideologies, but they're farmer. I think they just hide in religion, but I think this is a totally different kind of ideological affiliations, all right, if that will even explain what I'm trying to say. Now Chinese are creeping in every corner of Africa. Yes, now that story where is that story that really got me very upset? That story got me very, very upset here. For our viewers who are just joining, that story, what is the time now? Almost 4. I need to be going. But that story in Mozambique, where a Chinese firm constructing a cement factory in Mozambique's capital, Maputo, has been confining about 60 local workers on the construction site since March. Now, a company representative says the decision was taken to prevent possible transmission of coronavirus from the workers to the employer who is a Chinese. Do we not know where the coronavirus came from? In fact, this employer should have been very sympathetic, that, my country has brought death upon the world, So he has been locking these 60 workers in the construction site. Can you imagine? Since March. How many months are they? Since March. They've been locked up there. You mean to tell me, even the families of these 60 workers, none of them thought it would be a good idea to go even report this to the authorities and say, one of our kins is being locked up in there. I don't know if that is in line with the constitution, in a Chinese construction company, because the owner of that construction company, cement making a factory, is from China, and he is saying that should our people come home and go to work the next morning, they will go there and infect him with coronavirus. Needless to say, where the coronavirus came from. So my question was, if you were just a black African or just an African or anything else, you went into China, forget even being allowed to do businesses there, because I think that will be next to impossible. Forget that, what the government of Ghana is doing right now. I mean, but think about going to put a business in China, and then you even try to do that. Would you even leave that country alive? I don't think so. So now then, how does these foreigners get the audacity to come into our countries and then met us with human rights abuses, because that is what it is, in our own country, and our governments do not protect us from such acts? How do you explain that? Where do they get the nerve to think they can come here and treat us like that? It's quite upsetting, and it should be to any like it's I'm upset. 60 workers, they've been held in that construction, not a hotel, where you'd say you can be given a room there, the kitchen downstairs can prepare meals for you to bring you up. No, this is a construction site, cement construction site, since March. I don't know how you change your clothes. I don't know how you, I don't know how you take care of your basic human needs there, bathroom and all that. Since March. This is a Chinese in Mozambique, all right? And tells you you do not have a right to go back to your house, and you are a Mozambican. Where do they get the nerve from? Who allows them to do this? Sometimes we just sold out and we don't even know it. You know what? I need to go. A Gum quote, our leaders care about their own need, I'm sure. What is Biafra, bro? Richard Lokure. and mess everything up, imagine. All right. Thank you so much. Ina Hassan, you're saying, why do we give preferential treatment to foreigners and treat our own like trash? And unfortunately, that's what happens here. And I'm upset. I'm just hoping that tomorrow when I come here with the African news, what I'll be reading is the government of Mozambique has taken action against this, Chinese, Chinese citizen for abusing the rights of our people. But I'm not sure that is what we'll be having here tomorrow. And also remember that case, was it in Namibia, where the Chinese had started their own is it a barber shop, and even the signs and the wordings were written in Chinese, because they were targeting to only serve their own people in a country in Africa. Ridiculous. I'll see you tomorrow, all right? Don't get too upset, but I think things like this is what pushed the Mali people in the streets, and now the president is under siege there. Well, he resigned last night, but I think they should just let him be. I think they should not continue holding him, because he's no longer in power there until, as the military has said, they will make sure that the country has, it was in Zambia, yeah. Thank you, Ina, for that correction. Yeah, until they're able to organize elections very, very soon. So if you keep pushing people, when they have enough, they will push back. And I think that is the lesson we should all learn from Mali, whether there's somebody behind the protests or not, whether of course there are other external factors and external interests that perhaps even help to fuel what we've been seeing there. No doubt, two of the people who led this protest, they just came back from Russia from military training, all right? And one of them just came back from France, okay? All right, I'm not saying anything, but I'll see you here tomorrow, okay? Thank you so much. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day.
peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.